The swamp. A crossbody bag and a long pole with a gripper were placed in Deana's hands. The picker was tied to the bag, making it awkward to maneuver as she carefully climbed the steep steps to the scaffolding elevator. 50 Mycorians boarded each swaying scaffold. How many scaffoldings swung on both sides, waiting for passengers, she couldn't see. But the half-hour descent offered a silent and solemn scene for everyone. The oppressive silence served as the toneless background music for the gray landscape of the swamp on the Great Mushroom's eastern side. A thick blanket of fog sat like a soggy shroud midway down from the top of the trees, their leaves a muted gray, not green. The tangled roots rose high above the motionless, murky water, appearing like downcast frowns, and from time to time, something moved beneath the surface, leaving riplets of waves upon the water's surface. The scaffolding touched down with a splat, sending a wave of water to its edge. Mycorian stepped off, sinking ankle-deep in the dark water. Deana stumbled as someone shoved past her and ran, earning angry shh noises from those experienced in the swamp. Someone pointed, but Deana couldn't make out what they were seeing until the swirling mist finally parted. There, in the distance, sat a gargantuan toad, a creature so vast it dwarfed 3 leaf lodging rooms, and its head reached the lowest tree branch 3 Mycorians high. Yet its colossal scale was overshadowed by the sight of 5 Mycorians clustered around it, bizarrely licking and tenderly caressing its skin. As more fog cleared, Deana could see other toads, each attended by 3 to 5 Mycorians engaged in similar acts of licking, stroking, or resting upon their backs, as if the amphibians were custom-made beds. Deana was so stunned by the sight that she completely missed the other Mycorian snatching up the mushrooms barely poking from the water. She wrestled with her picker, still attached to her bag, then waded into the water to find some. It was messy, tedious work, constantly trying to avoid others whose movements made waves, obscuring the sight of the mushrooms. She pushed on, shifting her focus on finding the scent of the mushrooms instead, her whiskers and nose ceaselessly moving. Within the hour, she had only 5. As the day wore on, the mushrooms became scarcer and scarcer. A sudden massive splash sent Deana tumbling into the water, her picker disappearing in the murky depths. Anger flared as she scrambled to her feet, oblivious to the panicked Mycorians fleeing around her. By the time she registered what was happening, something coiled around her waist, yanking her skyward. She barely managed a choked scream as she saw the toad's vast gaping mouth, its interior slick and thick with unfurling slimy tentacles. One pulled her in. She thrashed, but was already inside its mouth, with more tentacles quickly securing her limbs. As she twisted, desperately trying to break free, something slithered beneath her sack dress, popped off her Torbid cup, and seized her nub in an unbreakable, vibrating suction. The sheer sensation froze her, wiping away every thought of escape. Her nub was responding, a breathtaking feeling that made her gasp. This was utterly new, her body reacting with startling immediacy. The tentacles then loosened their hold, sliding under her dress to focus solely on caressing her flesh. A select few settled, wrapping around her 4 breasts, suckers finding purchase on each hardened nipple. Seeking a firmer hold on her curves, it ripped her dress. She groaned. The tentacles intensified their touch, the sucking on her nub and nipples massaging and gently drawing in her sensitive skin, sending her into a ravishing state. She opened, and almost immediately, she was engorged with hardened flesh, sliding in and out of her. The toad's mouth remained wide open, revealing onlookers whose heads peered in, their arms casually folded on its slick jaws, observing the act as if they were watching a theatrical performance. Though Deana typically preferred private intimacies, like the wealthy, the voyeurs were forgotten. The sheer intensity of the pleasure consumed her, blinding her to everything else as her climax cascaded, releasing a flood of eggs from her womb's walls. The toad, seemingly oblivious to typical orgasmic limits, continued. It relentlessly triggered more orgasms, the ecstasy creeping to the surface again and again, its warm, slithering tentacles eliciting continuous moans with every touch. This pleasure, she felt, would never end. "Okay, tuberance," a female voice called from the toad's gaping mouth. "She's ready now." And with that, Deana felt an overwhelming gush of hot seed filling her. She realized then that every single egg she'd released had been fertilized, and she had released them all. The warm, slippery caress continued as her belly gurgled, then rapidly swelled, as if she were carrying a full-term baby. With a groan, she bore down, and a gush of fertilized eggs poured out of her and down the toad's gullet. It seemed to sense when she was done. The toad then spat her out of its mouth, and she was caught in the arms of waiting mycorians. There, a cooing voice murmured. "Don't you worry. We've got you. We've got you." The soothing sound lulled her eyes closed as she collapsed into a faint, exhausted sleep. When Deana awoke, she found herself on a mossy hill. The air here was clear, free of fog, revealing only lush green trees and a shallow lake. The croaking songs of toads filled the peaceful surroundings. She sat up. "There she is," a female said, walking towards her and flopping down beside her. She had a massive grin on her face. "How are you feeling?" Deana gazed at the female in utter disbelief. What kind of a question was, "How are you feeling?" given everything that just happened? Your nub has never experienced anything like that before, has it? She prodded, emphasizing anything, a knowing glint in her eyes. You can't possibly return to the great mushroom after experiencing this, can you? Deana gaped, utterly speechless. Well, it doesn't truly matter what you feel or think anyway. She tapped her own collarbone. You're marked. Deana strained to see the faint blush-like band indicating her marriage. Her mouth dropped open. Yep, the female affirmed. You're married, and you'll enjoy it too. These toads, she said, waving her hand in their direction, they have a knack for finding mycorians like us. You know, with desensitized nubs. We've been waiting for months for a fifth bride for tuberance, and look. She pointed to a specific toad mounted atop another, thrusting and croaking loudly. You've helped him get a chance to reproduce, and by the looks of it, she's a strong one, too. Deana watched as the toad pulled out from thrusting, releasing seeds onto the female's eggs in the lake, then re-entered her, resuming thrusts. You go, tuberance, she shouted, cupping her hands around her mouth. Keep her releasing those eggs, you deserve it. Another individual approached, sitting beside them and spilling fruit onto the ground. Hungry? She asked. Before Deana could respond, the female picked up a red fruit and placed it to Deana's lips. Deana opened her mouth and took the delicious fruit inside. We're so glad you're here, she said with a smile. Oh, yes, we are, someone else yelled, and Deana turned to see 3 more females join them. Tuberance has been wearing us out with his need for eating our eggs to make him fertile, she explained. Your arrival hit the spot. Look at him. Another female giggled. He's so happy, she exclaimed, then also shouted, Go, Tuberance, go! The toad responded with a great croak as he withdrew again, shooting out seeds to cover the female's freshly released eggs. Deana's gaze fell upon other mossy hills, each with clusters of mycorians, who were either all male or all female. Just then, one of the females on her own hill voiced Deana's very next thought.
Where are the males that she has?
She asked, indicating the female toad that Tuberance was with. Right there, another pointed. That group of 7 over there.
7?
She burst out.
She manages to take on 7 males to reach ovulation? She needs that many?
Yeah, I was just telling the new bride that she was a strong one. Despite everything, the excitement and happiness emanating from the group of females, for some reason, brought a smile to Dicena's face. They kept cheering for their husband? She supposed that's what he was, though she doubted he'd ever provide them with children, let alone a home.
So,
the female who had given her fruit began,
I'm sure you're full of questions, and I'll give you some answers, okay?
She didn't wait for Dicena's reply.
This is the breeding area beyond the swamp, a place unknown to those on the Great Mushroom. Toads are only here to breed, then they carry us deeper into the forest to open meadows, where we have houses and families. 3 of us have husbands, and 2 of us have children. The community raises our offspring while we're here for the toads' breeding. At home, the toads protect us in the meadows from other reptiles and the great foxes.
Especially the great foxes, another quickly added.
Basically, everything out here will reduce you into a blubbering pleasure stick, she explained. You would literally lose your ability to talk, focusing only on the simple, basic needs of pleasure, releasing, shelter, and eating.
The others nodded solemnly. Except with the birdmen, one scoffed, rolling her eyes. They'll just keep you around like second-hand family pets. They simply don't take a hint when we're not interested in their egotistical songs and pretty feathers. She mimicked, arms outstretched and waving as if frantically flying. A burst of loud laughter erupted from the group, acknowledging the shared truth. And nothing will ever separate us from the toxins the toads excrete from their skin. The taste is simply divine, another purred.
It keeps us healthy, energized, and, I should mention, fertile,
the female continued, unconcerned by the interruptions. We don't interact with the great mushroom dwellers because they've essentially ostracized us. They deceived and wronged us, one muttered. Precisely. They withheld the truth that a certain percentage of us will always undergo this change and develop desensitized nubs, making it impossible for us to ever be citizens of the Great Mushroom, no matter what we do.
Those who aren't lucky, like us, get turned into slaves, forced to churn out eggs for every fathomable predator dwelling outside the Great Mushroom.
The female pointed, confirming. Yes, that.
So, count yourself saved and lucky.
You're welcome, another female said with a mock bow. It was a lot for Dicena to take in.
You'll learn more as you live with us,
the female with the fruit said, gently pushing a purple fruit to Dicena's lips.
For now, just enjoy Tuberance for the next few days. In a week, we'll welcome you to our new home. Okay?
All eyes were on her, waiting for her decision. Dicena considered her options. Here, she would finally have everything she wanted. A husband, a home, and children. Even though her primary husband was to be a toad, the sensations he'd provided were utterly unprecedented. Their encounter together was raw and unbridled, driven by pure primal urges and the fundamental needs for survival and pleasure. And these females? They were so relaxed, self-assured, and lovely. She couldn't imagine a better group of sister wives. She'd become lost in her dreams and desires. As remarkable and odd as this all was, this could work. Gazing upon their hopeful eyes, she changed her mind. No, this would work. Dicena nodded. Okay. They beamed and burst into cheers, with a few clapping their hands. Welcome to the family! The end. Want to try another path? Or, this is my preferred ending.